Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for...
UnSpun.
Okay, I have no idea what that reference is.
SkyTrain.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Oh yeah, that's not off the top. No, we want to hit some international news first.
Yes.
Everything's sort of evolving here, so things will change. We record usually on a Thursday, but this time we're on a Friday.
Yep.
So today is a big day on a couple of fronts. First of all, the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus. You've all heard about it now. It's a top story everywhere. And the biggest thing that I'm learning being on the news side of things and being, I'm a part of Chorus and I work at CKNW, and so I get a lot of intel and information through that. And the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is misinformation being spread about this. Like, there are people that are freaking out about it. Yes, it is a global health emergency. The WHO announced that on Thursday, and there are things to be concerned about. But the number one thing we need to remember here in Canada is that we learned a great deal from SARS. And the way we're reacting here, medically speaking, how we are handling this is one of the best reactions of any country in the world. That's what we're learning. The biggest things that we can do as citizens: wash your hands like 20 times a day for 20 seconds with soap and hot water. If you don't have access to that, get hand sanitizer. I was at London Drugs for Pink Shirt Day launch yesterday. They were out of hand sanitizer because people are getting the memo. Well, you don't really need a mask, but don't be...
No, but they're out of masks.
Right.
Sold out of masks.
But don't be sensitive to people who might be wearing a mask, because maybe they're feeling a little under the weather and they're looking to protect you as opposed to protecting it, because a mask really doesn't help.
And I've had a cough for a couple weeks now. It's
Great.
See ya. A little cough that I had from a cold. Yeah, you can see the sense of people. Hey, oh God, they gotta keep away from that guy.
Don't touch your face. That's the way this virus must go through one of the membranes, through your eyes, your nose, or your mouth.
Right.
So if you don't touch your face with the stuff, if you touch here and someone touched here, and then touch here, you could get it. But if you don't touch your face, your odds go down. If you wash your hands a lot, your odds go down. So just...
I'm a bit of a germaphobe already. I mean, I go into, like, when I'm going to the movie theaters, I'll, like, grab a pan, hand looks at, I think I'm eating my popcorn. I don't want to have somebody else's germs on my hands.
Great, I never thought about that before, George.
So I always use my elbows and my feet and my jacket to open doors. So I'm a bit of a freak that way already.
And now I am too. No, but that's a good thought. It's like going on an airplane, for sure. Like right now, would I choose to go on an airplane to Asia? No. Would I even choose to go to a hospital right now if I didn't need to, like to visit someone? No. This is a time to sort of just scale back that, but don't scale back living your life.
No. What's interesting also, I must say, the impact of this is having is huge. Obviously, the stock market is feeling it. Yeah. I personally have been impacted in a strange way, maybe. But I ordered a new Mac a couple weeks ago, and I had to get special built because I have it needs so much memory, or I don't understand it. Anyways, it's delayed.
Comes from China.
It comes from China, and they don't know when it's going to arrive.
Right.
Because
they've stopped everything.
Nobody's working. They're not shipping anything. So you sort of, and that then of course has huge ramifications across the board. I mean, if there's me and there's millions of me who are waiting for their computers for whatever reason, then that impacts, this sort of challenge that we're going to have if this keeps going. And there's the predictions this is going to take a year before they get the vaccination.
Right. So, but hopefully they're accelerating that. As of yesterday, with the global health emergency called by the WHO, one of the pieces there was to invest in accelerating the creation.
Is it the money?
It is money. It is money.
Really?
Yes, it is.
They just had to test.
No, and speaking with Dr. Peter J. Hotez, who was part of the team, his team, he's at Baylor School of Medicine. He's the dean at the Baylor School of Medicine, and he's a vaccinologist. He's a very interesting man who I've had the opportunity to interview on a number of occasions about vaccines. And this one in particular, when I spoke with him, almost 2 weeks ago, 12 days ago, he said it's going to get worse, and what we need to do is accelerate the vaccine. The good news is this is similar to SARS, and because they have a vaccine for the SARS virus, that they might be able to now seek, because we do, when they say we have the test to take a presumptive novel coronavirus test and see if it is an actual case, they have that genetic test for what the virus looks like, and having that means you can start testing for it. With SARS, it took a while to establish what the pattern was. And so we're lucky. China actually very much got ahead of this, and that's what the World Health Organization
said. Are you believing Chinese propaganda?
No, I am believing the WHO. And anywhere they can build a freaking hospital for thousands of people in 10 days, they're reacting in China.
Also, in China, have you seen the drones? There's people posting this today. These drones that are flying around. I shouldn't laugh.
In Wuhan.
In Wuhan, saying, and they're yelling at people, saying, "Put on your mask. Hey, pretty girl. Hey, pretty boy. Put on your mask. Put on your mask."
Hello, small child.
These kids running like, who's talking to me from the sky? The word of God is telling me to put my mask on.
Okay, so let's move to today, Friday. At some point today, the Senate will be voting as to whether or not to allow witness testimony.
I guess we'll see Donald Trump in handcuffs by the end of today.
No.
Orange jumpsuit.
That's not today, George.
Oh, what?
Come on, unspun. Today is just about whether or not the John Boltons of the world will have an opportunity to be a witness. And if Bolton's called, then the GOP want to bring in Joe Biden, like he had anything to do with the phone call quid pro quo with Ukraine. It's just super.
So that would delay, if they call witnesses, that'll extend the length of this time. If they don't, then it ends today, right? Probably? The whole thing?
Yes.
And likely.
Then he's acquitted.
He acquitted, so.
He will forever be impeached.
Like Clinton was.
But he will, exactly.
Same
process. But he will not be removed from office.
And now
he has. Nobody thought he was going to be removed from office with a Senate that is.
This is the challenge when you have all these, the Senate and the Congress, and it's similar. It's starting to happen here now. While everybody wants an independent Senate and they want to have a Senate that's not partisan, what it does do is in the future, if we have a Senate that decides to be obstructionist, it really slows down democracy and slows down.
That's what people are talking
about,
and
that's the problem in America. They have the Senate, the Congress, and the President. Sometimes none of those things are the same, and you just create stagnation of governance. And impeachment is a perfect example of, okay, so clearly this guy looks like he may be guilty. Congress decided he was guilty, but now these guys say he's not guilty. I'm like, how does that work?
Because they have a majority. Yeah. And that back behind the scenes, it's like, we have a majority, here's what we're doing. They've said from the very beginning.
Yeah. So
they're acting as an agent of the White House. So this is not going to be a surprise. However, the news cycle will get very noisy. As it is in London right now, Brexit. The official...
There's tears, there's cheers. I saw some of the speeches at the EU, the Scottish rep, and she was, did a really powerful speech. We'll be back, we'll be back. And then Nigel Farage got the mic turned off, who's a pro Brexit, and on the EU, and
they turned off the
mic. He was going on about how
great this
giving them the middle finger, basically saying adios amigos, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So they click, you're out of here now. Bye.
Let's get back here, shall we?
Bring it home.
Let's bring it home. First of all, you're going to follow us at UnSpun Podcast. Of course you are. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to follow George Affleck, George_Affleck, who got a shout out, by the way, at the BC Poly Hot Stove with Jordan Bateman and McLean K, which we'll talk about in a bit.
In a mocking way?
Well, I'll tell you later.
Okay.
At Jody Vance, Jody with a Y, Vance, and at the Orca BC. That's where McLean, our editor-in-chief, posts the stuff each and every day. So if you're following the Orca BC, you're going to get some great content on your Twitter feed. So let's talk about some great content each and every week for 56 weeks now here on UnSpun Podcast.
56.
We have talked about Oppenheimer Park, and your Oppenheimer update is?
Status quo?
Yeah.
However, I mean, we brought this up last week, and you tweeted about seeing tents in other parks now.
Yes.
There's a tent in my park at Elsie Roy School. And they seem to be there for a couple of days, and then they disappear. And I am wondering, how come they're disappearing from those parks? Are those people just there hanging out and they leave themselves? Or is somebody at Park Board going, okay, move along, move along? And if they're doing it there, why are they not doing it at Oppenheimer? How can you have a double standard on getting people to move along in parks when they set up their tents? I don't understand it.
George Affleck, what a great question.
If somebody from Park Board, and I think I did tag a few people last week and I did not get a response to my question, what the rule was and how they decided. I would like to know how they decide from a management point of view. The head of the Park Board, not the political person, the staff, how do they decide who to tell to move along at any other parks?
Telling
they can't
you,
do the same at Oppenheimer.
Georgia Palooza, summer 2020, Spanish Banks. Let's just show up with tents. Let's just go there and see what happens.
Not the Folk Fest, of course.
Not the Folk Fest.
Not that weekend.
No.
Because, you know.
Because that's cool. I mean, that's a cool event with a permit.
People are kind of camping there already.
But that's cool, and they get a permit.
We just show me camping in general would be quite a statement, because my kids would be like, "What? Dad's setting up a tent?"
We'll bring a delicious picnic basket for you.
Fantastic.
And
wine, so we can drink some wine in the park. Set up a tent.
Oh, we're gonna hit them all this summer, George. All of them. But I bet we would be hit.
A podcast live from the beach in a tent.
A telethon of sorts. No, but we would get kicked out. We would get fined for having wine. Mm-hmm. We would get fined for having a tent after 10 p.m.
But I'll have a big doobie, and that's no problem.
Well, that's a protest. It's different,
George. Right. Well, we'd be doing a protest if we were doing all of those things, right? If we set up a tent, we drink some wine, and we smoke some pot, we're breaking every single possible rule in the park.
I'm in. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Let's get
Mosquitoes,
to some City Hall business of the day. Mm-hmm. I saw the big announcement.
Oh yeah, so exciting! It was. Oh boy, this is going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Okay, let's take it live.
All these stations went live.
Yep.
I was listening to NW, Mike Smith, and literally I think he knew within 30 seconds. Okay, this isn't bullshit. They announced this partnership with the First Nations on saying they want SkyTrain to UBC. I mean, great. That's good.
Was it the fact that they wanted all the way to UBC as opposed to just to Arbutus? Is that the new piece?
But of course the First Nations wanted to UBC. They have 5 major developments happening out there. And that's, I mean, absolutely it should go to UBC. I'm very supportive, have always been supportive of SkyTrain to UBC. The plan is to have 2 stations at UBC. I thought the announcement was going to be the funding structure, that this is how much money the development will cover.
Was it $8 billion or something?
Yeah, but I want to know, like, if you want money from the feds and the province, you got to say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pay for these 2 stations and the line from wherever, Alma, I don't know, wherever, the edge of the endowment lands to we'll pay for it all. You just need to pay for that little chunk from Arbutus to wherever the next stop is, I guess somewhere along 10th Avenue. So, I mean, I was like, well, what is this? I mean, okay, and a memorandum, okay, great. I mean,
it's going to go up where that Safeway was, where they just brought that Safeway down on 10th Avenue.
Potentially, that's good.
That's a good spot.
The spot. They're putting,
it's ready,
and that whole area needs density.
Yes.
And I think the neighborhood there is ready for it.
And,
but you know, it's so this announcement. I'm like, and so I was listening to Mike Smith filling in for Simi, and he literally gave him like about 45 seconds, and he's like, okay, anyways.
Yeah.
He's like, I know where this is going. Nowhere.
Smitty can call the BS a mile away on the announcements, but you know, the mayor loves a photo op. I think we're at like 75,
and yet doing nothing.
Right.
They approve some
announcing things.
Announcing things.
Announcing just things. But I mean, let's talk with the jobs.
Yeah, so UBC, I mean, the benefit of UBC here, so in this week we've had all these big announcements related to jobs in the city. We have, what was the big one? There was the Lululemon's
that's 2,000.
Yeah. There was another project, I forget which company it was. Who was it? Anyways, like 50 billion jobs. All these jobs coming to the city.
Shopify,
that's it.
Woo!
Thank you. I was looking for it.
It's Friday
Shopify,
morning.
Tons of jobs. The challenge is, where are these workers going to live? And as you may have heard, it's quite challenging to build in Vancouver, and especially major developments could take 5 years.
Right.
But the benefit at UBC,
unless it's a casino, those puppies go up fast.
Yes, or smaller.
Sorry,
yeah, maybe smaller can be done in 3 years. Yes, that was your outside voice.
Oh shoot.
Yes, I think that.
But the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week building of the Park Casino and the buildings surrounding that whole, is it Concord Pacific?
No, that was a different company that built that one.
Okay, I'm not.
The
the buildings around it.
Oh yeah, well those ones would.
Right, no, but I dig it. I am not slighting the 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day building because I think that's what we need.
Well, they can build a hospital in a week in China.
So let's kind of cut that.
But anyways, UBC, that's the benefit of having density, and UBC wants density not only for the students, they need the cash.
Right.
The First Nations groups are partnering with developers
Bravo,
out there.
By the way.
But the benefit is they don't really have a governance structure. They have a board of directors that meet pretty much in camera almost all the time.
Yeah.
And they make decisions without any kind of public input for the most part. They just get to say, okay, we're going to put this density here, and it's going to be these big and this.
And we're not even going to put that many parking spots in, and we don't
so
care if
you
that's
can
the
build
rule,
these 50,000 units that we need in probably less than 10 years. And so Vancouver, to take the pressure off of us, should be absolutely supporting that. But also we shouldn't be slacking off on our front too. But I would say that what's potentially happening, if this UBC line goes forward, people say, oh, why do we need it out there? There's nobody goes out there. It's a lot.
Would say.
And they come from everywhere. But it's like, this will be the next city center of Vancouver. That'll be our second city center. We're trying to make Oak Ridge the next city center, but Burnaby has 2 major city centers. We only have one, which is downtown. I would say that UBC at this rate will become potentially a major city center.
I agree with you. And somebody tweeted out, somebody who is anti-subway line to our UBC, tweeted out a photo of West Broadway and I don't know, whatever.
I think David Fine.
Oh, was it? Yeah, saying this is busy, and there was like next to no cars. And I've driven West Broadway a fair bit in my life because my grandparents lived on West Broadway. Literally, we're the last privately owned home on actual West Broadway piece of property, and I can tell you, it is really busy, and the buses are full going to and from.
The express
they're
line
full.
Is,
they're jammed.
And the
bus
my
after bus
argument
after
always,
bus after
there
bus.
There was this philosophy at TransLink for a long time, was that they would, and they still kind of have this philosophy, where you don't build till you have the whites of the eyes. They don't, till you've got the people living in the neighborhood, you don't add a transit route. And that is nonsense, because we can predict the population growth in the city fairly specifically to almost the areas where people are interested in living.
Right.
We know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen at UBC. It's happening. They're building. They're developing. So why not start? It takes 10 years to build this line. 10 years.
But going back to your jobs like Shopify and the Lululemon jobs, they won't want to live out at UBC. We need to do it all over Vancouver.
Well, if they do, they want to be able to take a train there fast.
Totally.
So
100% with you on it. I'm just looking outside of the whatever. Yeah. I'll call it the 4 walls of the city of Vancouver. They're figuring it out outside of Vancouver. Right. Like go to Ladner. Smaller example, no whites of the eyes there. They're actually just building things.
Yep.
Building the affordable for the middle class, the small family that are gonna use the grocery store and visit the coffee shop and shop at the little shop at the end of the street, and the kid's gonna go to school at kindergarten and all the way up to high school over there. Like building back the community. Like we're losing that community vibe in Vancouver.
Yeah, totally. And then if you think about Shopify or any other Amazon who wants to build a giant building somewhere,
like on the lands out in Tawasin.
Yeah, well, why not put the homes on top of these buildings, especially downtown?
Right.
So I think it was Michael Geller posted this saying, give them the density of an extra 30 stories above their offices to make residences for their staff at a discounted rate.
That.
And why would we care if a building is 80 stories versus 60 stories? I mean, unless it's in a view corridor, frankly, the difference in how it will look in the city. I live in a 30-story building, development. Next door are 2 buildings that are 50 stories. I frankly cannot, from where I'm standing, they look the same height to me. But there is light view. There is light that comes through because the way they're designed, they're point towers. There's ways to build our city to provide housing and workplaces based on the growth potential or predictions that we have, and we're not doing it.
Let's talk about getting people around, George Affleck, because it's been a week.
Yes.
Last week, when we sat down to do UnSpun 55, Uber and Lyft were announced.
It's
so
amazing.
Here we are.
Chaos has ensued. The streets are just cars everywhere. I can't get through. They're just jammed with Ubers everywhere.
It's like
road just
congestion.
Everywhere. It's insane. All these hybrids driving around.
What I noticed was there are a lot more cabs with the lights on.
Yeah. It's actually kind of tough to get an Uber. I did catch one on Friday. And
I don't have either of the apps. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine.
As somebody who's like, great, I can get a cab.
Yeah. I took an Uber and on Sunday night, I think it was. It was kind of a bit rough getting into my head. I don't know where he was going. I was following him. He's like, you can turn left. You're going the wrong way. But 3 taxis went by while I was standing waiting for that Uber to show up. So I'm like, God, it's just is like.
But how much was your Uber?
It was $9
to go from
Yaletown to Gastown, basically I was going to a concert.
So about the same.
Yeah, about the same. Probably a little bit more. bit more, I'd say. Probably $6, $7
It was like
for
a peak
cab.
hour?
Yeah.
Gotcha. How about, let's talk about the reaction to Uber and Lyft that the taxi associations have had. There's the Vancouver Taxi Association and there's the BC Taxi Association. They're separate. The Vancouver Taxi Association made quite a statement that you were very quick to point out.
Talk about spin, like terrible spin. Like, oh my God. They basically said we are not going to, what the exact wording was?
No longer subsidizing
accessible. Accessible cabs. Persons with disabilities can take these cabs. They have these sort of like minivans. They have the ramp on the back, and they can put your wheelchair in there. This was a requirement, 100%. The cities in Vancouver, specifically with the Vancouver Taxi Association, in order to get more licenses for the taxis in that time when we had the oligopoly, we required that they had to get a certain number had to be accessible. And these accessible cabs are really expensive. So I 100% understand, on one hand, that the taxi industry is challenged by this because they had this requirement.
It was a requirement of license,
built these cabs, and now they are facing this challenge from this other industry, this disruptive industry, Uber, that doesn't have that, and also has other a better app. So they came out and said they're not going to provide this anymore, and I'm like, oh, that is low.
It's a PR nightmare, and it is the lowest denominator on.
It's the last thing you would do if you felt like, okay, and it wasn't the government, because the next day the government said, and I actually tweeted this out, saying all the revenue that the taxation that we're getting from Uber, and Uber's not getting a free ride, pardon the pun, but they are paying provincial tax. Cities are paying all sorts of charge in Vancouver. I think it gets to about almost $5 in Vancouver for your base rate.
Yes.
So most of that is taxes.
Right.
So the provincial government came out, the minister, I think it was Claire Trevena, because she's in charge of almost every complicated file right now, except for healthcare, said, hey, no, we're actually, a big portion of the money we raise will be going to, in some capacity, somehow, we haven't figured it out, to pay for accessible vehicles, and whatever that might mean. And so she said this has always been the case. And so in my mind, the taxi industry, that's their trump card. You don't use that at the beginning, or if they they
felt like
could
it
have
was
gone
the
and said,
end, maybe.
no, but they literally go and talk to the government and say, we're in trouble. I know the taxi.
They're busy talking to Doug McCallum.
Yeah, well, I mean, just negotiate a rate for your cabs, or underwrite the capital costs. I don't know, but there's money to be had, and they just threw that out there, and it's such a PR nightmare.
And with
for them.
Our good friend, I've talked about him before, Ben Dooley, one of the best producers at NW, who happens to be in a wheelchair, was speaking to this. I talked about Ben when we were going through Snowmageddon, because watching that guy try and get around in the snow, where I bow to him. It's unbelievable. Like, the struggle is real already, and to throw it around like you're a pawn in our bigger scheme is just like, boo, thumbs down. Don't do it. And then the BC Taxi Association is lawyering up and wants to sue Claire Trevena, the government, and the
there was one taxi guy,
board.
I think North Van, the taxi guy there, I heard him on NW saying that he was not supportive of Vancouver Taxi Association's move on this. So kudos to him, to that, or that was
North Shore,
cab company, North Shore Cabs, I think,
What about ICBC? They're saying they're going to reduce the rate.
Oh, they did say that. That's right. That's a positive for taxis.
That's a positive for taxis.
So ICBC came out yesterday, I think, or the day before, saying they'll reduce the
it used to be
rates.
triple.
It was expensive, and that's not fair.
That's not.
And
fair.
there is a way to create more fairness in this situation. The provincial government say they're moving as fast as they can, and the government, of course, we know, moving fast. It's an oxymoron. Government moving as fast as it can.
No, because it'll cost them money if they move fast.
But how much is ICBC making off of that insurance? Seriously, I mean, it was like.
Well, 3 times what they would make if they cut it in.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to see the bottom line on that. I'm sure it's not billions.
No, but it's a reduction.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not. I mean, the taxis are going to get it reduced to make it a level playing field with the ride sharing, and yet your son is still going to have double.
$3,000.
Which
and
it's more than his car.
The cost of government, you think about business licenses, for example. So we've got that whole complication with Surrey.
Burnaby
has its own thing. They don't want Burnaby once they have $500.
It's passed now.
Yeah, so it's $500.
$500 if you're going to be in
Vancouver, I think it's around the same, plus cost per kilometer or per ride or something.
30 cents or something.
And then Surrey has nothing. They just fine. And then Tri-Cities has a regional mini thing. Today the mayors are going to, we don't know what it's going to be. They're announcing potential regional business licensing program. Did you know that you have to have a business license if you are a home worker.
I do.
If you work at home, you're required to have a business license. But guess what they don't do?
What?
They don't really enforce it.
Okay, good. Whew.
So why this Uber drivers? If you and any business like a service business, your business. Whatever.
I'm an independent contractor.
I don't go into Burnaby and go, oh, I got a client in Burnaby. I better get another business license in Burnaby.
No.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So
you should.
Why is it that Uber drivers should be based on where they live, right?
Yeah, they should be wherever they do their paperwork.
Seems pretty simple to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand why this is so. And it shouldn't be $500. It should be, my business license, I think, is $150 a year. Why is
bad?
it?
Why is it $500 then?
Well, because they're gouging an industry. It's gouging. It's government taxation. Anytime they got a new tax, they make it the max tax.
Right? And they never roll it back.
Never.
These are the things we learn on UnSpun. You can hit the orca.ca anytime to sort of take a perusal. You can also watch BC Poly Hot Stove, which I really enjoy. It's McLean Kay, our editor-in-chief, and Jordan Bateman, who's like senior vice president of something. No, we got a little back and forth going.
I'm not clicking his pen anymore. I know that.
He did not have a pen after last week's.
Sorry, buddy.
I was giving him the
Did I make
hard time.
Feel bad?
No, he did a full mea culpa.
Did he?
Yeah, you did. He apologized, and then he said, if he had got it wrong with underscore, he would have just left it. He loves us both so much. There you go, Jordan. Hey, on the middle, that's what I wanted to say at the orca.ca, my column this week, the middle. Last week I wrote about what was learned from the SARS outbreak for this coronavirus. There's some intel there that kind of shifts us to the narrative of this week, and it isn't just about the coronavirus, it's also about the blizzard that hit the East Coast, earthquakes off Vancouver Island, and that blasting accident on Highway 4 that cut off Tofino and Yuki there. They didn't have access to those
one road
areas.
in, one road out.
And for 4 days they had nothing, and the people that were there going, oh, we'll just eat at the restaurant. It's like, guess what? They don't have any food at the restaurant. It's gone.
And it's not like you can sail around there. It's a bit rough.
So my article is actually about the responsibility of food security. Like what's in your... You accidentally texted me yesterday thinking you were texting Amanda, and you said something like, I forgot the food?
Yeah, I forgot to bring my kids dinner.
Right, but it made me kind of go.
Because you guys actually have the almost exact same emoji.
Oh yeah, we do.
Because you both have glasses and you have so their Apple emojis almost.
I'm the work wife. Yeah,
that's right.
She's the other wife. But
they're both work wives. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I guess so technically. But being food secure, can you? Because we do it around when there's an earthquake or something. We all go, oh, do we have an earthquake kit? We need to be able to stay in place for 48 hours. What do we have? Do we have our medications? Do we have something to keep warm? Do we have a flashlight, a radio, those things? But if all of a sudden we all had to lock down in place for a couple of weeks, could you do that? And I'm telling you, it's just in our house. Y'all come over if that happens, because our house is loaded, because we're all chefy. So we've got freezers of it.
Your
cats will keep us entertained.
I might get really hungry, I don't know.
But when you go to the store next, grab a couple of things and just put a few extra things to be food secure. Yeah. Just some cans of
what's not
really
happen?
healthy
Nobody's
proteins.
Gonna do that.
Well, it's in my column.
But I appreciate you trying.
Thanks. Ow, that hurt.
Oh, right, sorry, you got your shot. She had her
shingles vaccine.
Which I asked, I said, what is the rule on that? I don't even know if I've had one. And I thought I had shingles, and I thought I had one, but then
if you've had shingles, you should get it. If you've had the chicken pox, you should get it. If you've never had shingles or the chicken pox and you're 50, you should get it.
It's really painful.
It's really painful, and people are like, it's $155 to get the shot. I tell you what, I missed a lot of work when I had shingles.
Yeah.
Way more than $155. And the shot was like getting the flu shot, because there's some people who say that it's like makes you feel sick for a few days and da-da-da. I had none of that, but when you hit me in my arm,
I'm sorry. Whoopsie.
Okay, well, I think that's it for us this week.
Well, we had nothing to talk about again.
We were so sure it was such a slow news day, but it's not. Oh, that's my reminder. See ya.
Bye.